Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Counselor's Office. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor, and we're actually back with a Counselor Reacts, an actual video reaction by the legendary Drops. And we're talking about, this will be the end of Ubisoft. It's been a minute since we've talked about Ubisoft and our Ubiflop at this point, and I figured, why not? There's been a lot going on, and we're going to see if, we're going to find out if there's anything new, right? Let's jump into it, shall we? I'm going to swap over. I've got a couple little bit of things that we're doing here. Bada bing. Oop, this one. There we go. Got the React screen back for your beautiful pleasure.
Silence your critics, lie to your fans, double down on poor decisions, ignore feedback. What's that? Oh, this is a big bag of feedback. We don't need that.
Oh wait, are we talking about Bungie? Or are we talking about Ubisoft? I can't tell.
And then virtue signal from your C-suite office. That is the Ubisoft plan for success. That's to get them right back on track. I am floored. I can't believe it. You know, everything that they've done, every action they've taken, everything that they have said has only dug their grave even deeper. At this point, they're just diving in, and honestly, I can't even really blame them. You know, I had hoped that after all of the bad press surrounding Ubisoft, with the failed launch of Star Wars Outlaws, them pushing back Assassin's Creed Shadows, that they would try to figure out ways to be able to trend in the right direction.
If there's one thing I've learned about video game companies in a long time of playing, they have their heads so far up their own ass. They don't listen. They think they know better. And here's the sad thing. People think that there's been the whole anti-woke movement, and sure, there are plenty of examples in games where the companies are trying to be woke or do the diversity bullcrap. Let's be honest. Companies don't care about diversity. They don't care about you. They don't care about your preference and your identity and your culture. They don't care about me. We're just numbers. And so in their mind, they're trying to calculate, how do I make numbers? And unfortunately, most of these companies are stupid. And Ubisoft is the most stupid of the stupiders. And I know that's not a word, but that's how stupid the situation is, because every turn that I see, Ubisoft is just making the wrong choice. Like, who are you trying to keep as your audience? Who are you trying to get to buy your crap? Like, seriously.
And then I thought to myself, why would they do that? I mean, come on. Now we have industry analysts that are predicting that Ubisoft is going to go private and then sell off their biggest IPs. And to be honest with you, they're probably not very far off. A lot has happened with Ubisoft since we last talked about them. And
good. I heard about the whole privatization thing, where, they're going to sell off. Obviously, the biggest titles that I think of Ubisoft that would go for something is Rainbow Six Siege and Assassin's Creed. So Assassin's Creed's been kind of a little bit. Rainbow Six Siege, it's not like the most overly popular, but it's a game that's been around for a long time, and it does really well. You think about games that just has a history of just being ongoing. Rainbow Six Siege is kind of one of those unspoken about games that just continue to thrive. Like, it may not be like Call of Duty popular, but it's got a pretty dedicated player base.
And at this point, their graceless downfall has turned into nothing but pure cinema. Ubisoft, once a titan of the gaming industry, is now a cautionary tale of what happens when a company loses touch with its audience, its vision, and becomes so top-heavy that their only recourse is to squeeze their customers for all they're worth.
Here's the problem. And we're only a minute in. There's 25 minutes, which is going to be a long video. Listen. When you try to make a game for everyone, that's game companies are becoming increasingly greedy. How can we, like you said, how can you squeeze? But in general, they try to throw a blanket everywhere and catch as many people as possible. But when you make a game like that, you don't make a game for any specific target. Like, when you think of Ezio, or even Connor, or Altair, and you're going out and you're just this likable dude. Especially Ezio, everyone loves Ezio. He's the prime target of everyone. Assassin's Creed talks about Ezio. He's just this charismatic, the ladies like him in the game. He's He's clever. He's funny. He's just a total badass. Who do you think the target is? Is it the women's? No, it's the men's. It's the men's. So, like, and the funny thing is, he's Italian. It wasn't like, oh, we're in Italy, but now we have this random Asian character as the main protagonist. Like, they didn't do that. Excuse me. Like, listen, I'm all like, Assassin's Creed is meant to be like sci-fi, supposed to be fiction, like based on historical context, but Ubisoft has done a very poor job with this whole Yosuke situation. Like, why don't you just own it and say, hey, this isn't historical by any means, even though there may be some content. We don't want you guys to just like, don't buy into us trying to think that this is historical. This is just, we want to go this direction. We know it's not, and like, obviously, if it was just the Asian chick, people would be a little bit better because at least it's Asian, but people would still find a way to complain. Oh, she doesn't look good, or oh, she's not sexy enough. And let's be honest, there's validity on both sides of the aisle. I'm just gonna say that right now. But I think there's gonna be a bigger. Have you seen the gameplay of Assassin's Creed Shadow? All right, there's bigger problems to fry, but that's just me. I'll sit in the back and let him talk.
This is a story that we have chronicled before. A company plagued by scandals, internal dysfunction, and creative stagnation. In my video, The Complete and Utter Collapse of Ubisoft, we retraced all of their obsessions with their annualized
Rainbow Six Siege, by the way. Dude, that's how far this game's come.
Franchises like Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and Far Cry. Once their crown jewels, now their Achilles heel. By recycling mechanics.
That's crazy. I'm sorry. If you've played Rainbow Six Siege now, and I haven't played in a minute, but my God, this is some old school Rainbow Six Siege.
Mechanics churning out uninspired titles, becoming increasingly more predatory with their monetization, and refusing to innovate, Ubisoft alienated their once loyal player base that could no longer stomach mediocrity. But their problems weren't just creative, they were systemic. As I pointed out, in Ubisoft lost more than they're worth, the company has been hemorrhaging money, losing key developers and chasing trends instead of setting them. They gambled on live service games and large projects that nobody asked for, sinking resources.
I think that's a big problem. And I'm hoping that the gaming environment, the community, and these developers are learning a lesson. I think trend chasing is a bad idea. I think you need to stick to your roots. If you want to get creative, do something creative because you want to do something creative, not because you want money. Obviously, they're going to make games to make money, but if you make a game for the gamers, the money will come. Especially the gamers, they will come. More than one way if it's a good game. They will come in multiple ways.
Into games like the long-delayed Skull and Bones, a game that has now become an industry punchline. They lost it all on Star Wars.
Let's be honest. Skull and Bones, you have to be really bold to say that you're the first ever quadruple A game, and it is the ass of the industry.
Outlaws only selling 1 million copies and then further embarrassing themselves with a release on Steam. And
I do want to stop and say, I know I'm stopping a lot, but there's a lot of things I have not talked about when it comes to Ubisoft. Like, I have not talked about Outlaws. I think a lot of people are like, it's the ugly woman, so that's these inbred degens. Of course, they don't like this game. No. I think the problem is that it's Star Wars. I think if they had removed Star Wars and just made it its own thing, it would have had its own little niche, cult following. People may have found enjoyment, but it's because it is Star Wars. And when you use a title like Star Wars, there's an expectation. It's like using Apple, right? The Apple brand name. If you buy something that's Apple and it's like this cheap piece of crap and it falls apart, like this, like headphones, and it just falls apart, you're like, what the hell? This is Apple. They usually have, for the money I spend, they're pretty decent. Sometimes it's arguable whether they can put more quality into it, but at least it's a name brand that they have some expectancy of quality. Star Wars Outlaw was just a garbage can game, mostly because it wasn't the Star Wars that people wanted. People think Star Wars, they want Jedi, they want force pushing, they want stabby things with lightsabers. They want the dark side. They don't want, oh, you're just a nobody with a little pea shooter. Wow. No. And I think those are kind of the decisions that Ubisoft has been making, where they make games that nobody wants to play. Like, who are these games for? And let's be honest, if you're not focusing your game on the sweaty nerds, sweaty male nerds, then you're missing out on a large portion of the gaming community.
Closed the studio behind Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, arguably the best game that they've had in recent times, just because they overcharged for it. Add to that workplace scandals and allegations of toxic leadership, and it's no surprise that Ubisoft has seen waves of talent departures and plummeting investor confidence. Despite the warning signs of their games failing to reach audiences, Ubisoft seemed unwilling or unable to change. They clung to outdated design philosophies and tone-deaf marketing strategies, prioritizing shareholder appeasement over player satisfaction.
I think one of the biggest failures on their part is the continuation of two things. One, selling you, like, if you pre-order this edition and you get one brand new map or mission, or buy the deluxe edition, get access to 3 new missions. Like, no one wants that crap. Or the funniest one, sorry, I laughed into a cough. Or the buy now and get 3 days early access. That is the stupid. I'm so glad that games have stopped doing that. Like, Call of Duty instantly stopped after they got railed for how bad their campaign was. They're like, oh, you know what? Let's not sell 3 days early access because it could be a double edge. Yes, we get money, but also can take away our money. And I think like Ubisoft is slow to pick that up, but I think they've learned a valuable lesson that maybe we shouldn't do that because people don't want early access. People don't want that. Like, we went from getting early access to like extra days of beta to now it's early access of the game. And all it is here's our actual release date. You pay us extra money to get that release date, and then everyone else is going to be late. That's all it is. It's not early access. It's on, you're paying extra to get the same day access that it should have been for everyone else.
Satisfaction while accomplishing nothing. Literally nothing. And while other companies in the industry have found ways to pivot or regain their footing, Ubisoft has dug their heels in, spiraling further into irrelevance. Fast forward to today, and the cracks in the foundation have split wide open. The struggles that we've talked about before are no longer cracks in their armor, they are gaping wounds. Just recently, Ubisoft announced the closure of 2 studios, another devastating blow to their workforce and morale, and then there's
You see how happy he is? You see how happy that guy is?
The closure of 2 studios.
You see how happy this guy is? Yeah. He probably has more money in his bank than everyone else. And so even if he loses his job, he's probably okay.
Another devastating blow to their workforce and morale. And then there's X-Defiant, a game that was supposed to show that Ubisoft could still compete in the realm of military shooters, instead becomes yet another entry in their growing list of failures.
Here's the thing. They should have evolved. You want my honest opinion? They should have done a new Rainbow Six Siege. I think evolving Rainbow Six Siege, and like obviously they have the base game, and it's always dicey when you go from a new version, but look like a CSGO. CSGO 2, still very successful. Also, we're looking at Division gameplay here. Why not do another Division and like evolve Division? Go to the next stage. Like right now, live service games, not in the best spot, especially like Destiny. But you could pull people from Destiny into this, like, or from Warframe or the First Ascendant. Like, they could evolve. Put like Siege into that, right? Like, have Siege classes. You can make your character into a Siege class. I don't know, something like that. I'm just spitballing, but instead of just like trying to make a whole entire Call of Duty copy, which you're again chasing trends, instead of doing that, like, let's do something that you're actually good at.
Juice Van Duren, business professor and former CEO and co-founder of Superdata Research, a games marketing research company, is predicting that Ubisoft is headed for privatization and dismantling in 2025. saying, with the share prices plummeting from $28.19 to $12.30 year over year, the company has become an attractive takeover target. Its valuable assets, particularly Rainbow Six Siege and the Assassin's Creed franchise, could be worth more separately than together. Now, something I want to be crystal clear on is that Ubisoft is essentially powerless. In the videos that I had made previously, I was just basically stating that the Titanic had hit the iceberg. They were already taking on water. The ship was sinking. Their only options right now are to save their valuables and try to salvage what's left. That's the position that they're in right now. You know, in a lot of cases, we talk about how difficult it is for some of these really top-heavy companies to be able to turn things around because it takes a while for them to do so, but we don't ever get to study a company that can't turn around. And that's the position that Ubisoft is in, and honestly, that's what makes this...
I think, so here's the thing. You want to know companies that can't turn around? The ones that close. How many different like studios have closed or companies have just like straight up just poof? Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, okay? Let's be honest. Ubisoft is just going to cease to exist, and then someone's going to claim their assets and be the new Ubisoft.
So fascinating. You know, when I had made the video talking about how Ubisoft had lost more than they're worth, I meant it. Truly, I meant it. They have had too many games that they've released that came out to subpar reception or failed completely, and they spent way too much money on it. And on top of that, the company has too many employees to support. Do people even understand that this company has over 20,000 employees working for them? They are...
No. They used to have that. I'm telling you, the layoffs are coming.
Massive. When you're making as much money as they are right now, that is not enough to support that many people. I mean, even if Assassin's Creed Shadows found success, let's say 5 million copies, that's...
I don't think Assassin's Creed Shadows will make more than 1 million. Let's be honest. Here's the thing. There's too much drama going on with Assassin's Creed Shadows, but have you seen the gameplay? Like, people have been wanting like an Asian storyline, historical spot for Assassin's Creed for a long time. It looks bad. The gameplay just looks so boring. I've seen other videos of how buggy it is. Like, there's a reason they delayed it to next year. It is so bad. And that's my concern. Why would I play a game where if I just watch, I can tell by instantly looking at it that it's boring and bad? Forget the historical context. Forget the gay African-American samurai. Forget all that. The gameplay looks bad.
That's a conventional success in gaming. That's not too bad. That would cover their development costs and marketing costs. And then outside of that, not really a whole lot else. They would need a Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring level of success. We're talking 10 plus million copies sold for them to make a profit on this game. And then
Ubisoft has probably an opportunity here. Do a Assassin's Creed Stellar Blade. Find an Assassin's Creed, make it a sexy Assassin's Creed, a bunch of skins, bikinis, everything. Just go full degen for the dudes who love the Stellar Blade and want the titties. Full customization of boobs and butts. Just nothing says more than assassin than having a big thigh assassin jump on top of you and slit your throat. Like, I'm just saying, you want some quick money, Ubisoft, break the mold. Get me let me have big titty assassin just slit some throats. I'm absolutely memeing, but y'all know that probably would sell pretty well.
And even still, it's not going to cover up any of the mistakes that they've made with their other games, with all of the money that they've invested into Skull and Bones or Star Wars Outlaws or anything else for that matter. And then keep in mind that their next games to release after this are much, much further down the road. We're talking years that they're going to have to survive on that money. Assassin's Creed Shadows is not going to sell that much. For Ubisoft,
what exactly is the next games they have listed? That's the thing. Like, what in their IPs they have Far Cry, which is like far forgotten. Watch Dogs, which has just been like, I think the first one was all right, like mostly received well. I think it's been downhill since then.
Ubisoft to be able to patch the hole and get to shore, it's an impossible task. They're not going to be able to do it. But if they did, it would be one of gaming's biggest turnarounds. But to do that, it would require leadership, strong leadership. But in this case, the captain is just heading for the next iceberg.
I think if you want to turn the ship around, you need to make games that people want and focus on your core audience. Stop trying to cast nets on everything. Don't, like, I'm not saying don't try to be anti-woke, but I think you need to appease the crowd that's going to probably give the most crap about your game. It's not the diversity, people who want diversity. They're not going to be invested in this game as much as your sweaty nerds who are upset that we are not basing, we don't have a Japanese dude. Instead, it's an African dude. Like, those people are chronically playing video games that are online, and they're more willing to buy your crap than the people that are like, oh, yay, African-American dude, I'm so excited. And then they never touch the game. They're happy that you achieved their agenda. Let's be honest. Now, are there people out there that have been wanting to have an African-American assassin? And yeah, but why can't they just be based off Africa or like Egypt? Actually, there was Egypt. So why can't we just have one based in African America then? Why? It's like, hey, look, we're going to Africa, but instead of an African American assassin in Africa, we're going to have a British guy. Yeah, that's right. The British guy during the slave trade. We're going to have a British white assassins guy in African America. That's the equivalent of what the perspective I can see and understand. But Ubisoft just needs to focus on the sweaty nerds. I hate it. Because I am a sweaty nerd, but like, listen, I hate it for the fact that if you cater to people who are the loudest, it does become a problem. Like, oh, this game's woke, and we're seeing it right now where too many people are using that as a tagline versus when it's actually very apparent. And there are some very, very apparent situations where I think, you know what? Yeah, I see. That does seem woke. But it's just like the opposite is that's racist or that's homophobic. Like these words are just flung out to everything. And I hate both sides of it. I hate it. It's so annoying because it removes an actual discussion. It removes the ability to provide real criticism to these games. And it also gives these developers an out saying, oh, well, they're just the woke crowd. I'm just going to dismiss every criticism and throw it under the umbrella. Obviously, good developers won't do that. But welcome to the era of gaming we live in.
Following the bad press surrounding Ubisoft, the delay of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and the failed launch of Star Wars Outlaws, you would think that the company would try to remain low profile, not make any waves, and not do anything to rock the boat any further. Disregarding all sense of caution, common sense, and reality for that matter, Ubisoft launched Champions Tactics Grimoria Chronicles into personal success in gaming. That's not too active takeover target. It's
I messed up. I done goofed. Hold on. I'll find it. There it is. It's an NFT game.
For that matter, Ubisoft launched Champions Tactics Grimoire.
What the hell is that? Quietly launched a full-blown NFT. Yeah, I didn't even know this was a thing until just now. Called Champions Tactics. Sure looks like something. In October? What the hell? I don't think they even advertised this game. What?
Grimoria Chronicles, a tactical turn-based player versus player RPG. The gameplay markets as tactical play to win. This NFT game would see you buy and sell character pieces, earning cryptocurrency in the game that you could then turn into heroes, and then you could sell that for real money. The common line of garbage that we normally get with these kind of games.
I feel like this would have been a really decent game if, one, they advertised it, and two, it was NFTs. But I think it's because it was NFTs that they just like, I'm going to slide this underneath.
Or at least what they try to sell to their coped out audiences. But Ubisoft was selling
There's definitely coke going on here.
Upwards of $63,000, and to the dismay of many playing the game in true Ubisoft fashion.
Wait, Season 5. This went on for 5 seasons. Ubisoft's NFT dumpster fire flares up as matchmaking bug leaves every player connecting and losing the same confused, unkillable guy. Oh my God. I actually remember this. Someone was, it was on Twitter. Someone was talking about a game where apparently the dev was playing and everyone was losing to the dev. And so the dev was just literally taking all the NFTs for himself.
It was broken at launch with claims of cheaters and exploiters. While Ubisoft tiptoed around their NFT game, Ubisoft's head of Assassin's Creed Shadows held back nothing when it came back to tackling the ongoing discussions about forced.
Assassin's Creed boss discusses the devastating impact of Shadows' diversity and inclusivity backlash. Our creative team faces lies, half-truths, and personal attacks online. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep. I read this and I read, we are blaming our fans for having a bad, this game's not going to do well because of the fans. Yeah, I'm sure blaming the fans and the people who buy your games, I'm sure that's going to go well.
Representation and the influence of diversity, equity, and inclusion in video games. This has been a major point of contention for potential players and fans of Assassin's Creed, as this is the first game to be set in Japan. A fitting setting for the franchise, but the game's main protagonist isn't Japanese. Assassin's Creed boss Mark Alexis Cote responded to player pushback saying, Assassin's Creed has always been about exploring the full spectrum of human history, and by its very nature, that history is diverse. Staying true to history means embracing the richness of the human perspective without compromises. For example, in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we highlight figures both fictional like Naoe, a Japanese woman warrior, and historical like Yasuke, the African-born samurai. While the inclusion of a black samurai in feudal Japan has sparked questions and even controversy, Naoe, a fictional character, has also faced scrutiny for her gender.
I'm sorry. That last statement is like they're doubling down on this Yasuke being historical, even though there's been a lot of context coming out and saying that the books from the guy that talked about him was fake. And even like the whole wiki thing about him making his own wiki and basing the book off the wiki is the same dude. There's a lot of sus stuff going on, and it does that's the distrust that is caused by people who are trying to push their agenda. And that, to me, that is very suspicious, and I would not trust those people. But then you have Ubisoft, who's doubling down on the historical context. Like, again, historical context is such a broad brush because it's not actually historical. It's just there is some history of myths and rumors, but they're not treating it like it's a myth or a story. It's a matter of fact that he's real, she's not. And they're talking about like, oh, well, it's not just because Japan, there's a black guy in Japan. Our actual Japanese lady, well, we've received a lot of backlash from her too because she's a woman. And listen, they're not. I'm going to say he's right and wrong, or they're right and wrong. There's going to be people who are going to complain about a woman, absolutely. But I think that happens every game, except for like Final Fantasy. Like people love Aerith and Tifa. Oh, people love Tifa. I love Tifa. Like there, UV, all these like women's, right? There's women's in video games. And no, Lara Croft, people are okay with women's. And I don't think the majority of people who like Assassin's Creed have a problem with Noe being a woman and being one of the playable characters because she's Japanese. I think the biggest issue is you are trying to gaslight people and try to deflect. This statement is deflecting. Like, oh, what? Yeah. Don't worry about that problem because people are still actually complaining about the woman. Like, it's not just that we have an African American. It's also women's, and you guys are all inbred, racist, sexist people, and you're the problem, not us.
Fictional character has also faced scrutiny for her gender. But just as Yasuke's presence in Japanese history is fact, so too are the stories of women who defined societal expectations and took up arms in times of conflict.
Is fact. That's not actually a fact. Just because you wrote read a book from a white dude who made a wiki and made the book from the wiki citing sources from himself doesn't mean it's fact. I could do that.
Holy gaslight, Batman. I don't think I've seen anybody strawman this hard. I don't think I've seen any backlash regarding Nawe. A Japanese female ninja is pretty fitting for a setting like this, and
I think it's a double thing, right? I think the assassin creeping part, like the sneaking stuff, is all right. I think that's the best part of what I've seen so far is her and her sneaking. I think it's the combat that's the problem. Anytime I see combat in this game, it's ass. And so if people are complaining about her, it's not her specifically, it's her combat.
I'll be honest with you, if she was the main and only protagonist, I don't think people would be complaining nearly as much. I personally do not understand the inconsistency of the messaging here. First, you want to say it's rooted in history, then you want to say it's fiction, then you want to say you want to make a fictional character historical.
It is definitely there. It is gaslighting. This Ubisoft, they are really good at flip. And I've read multiple things where they said, oh, it's not historical, or this is we've always made fiction out of based on history, or it's always this word gymnastics where they always try to downplay everything and come up with an excuse for why it is
historic. I just don't understand why you keep trying to justify it. Why don't you just say we made Yasuke because, well, we thought it would be entertaining and it's what we wanted to make, rather than making it sound like it's some type of noble cause.
Yeah, I mean, have your balls out. Put it on the table. Just say, hey, we wanted to make an African-American protagonist. This is the game we want to make. It's not historical. We don't care.
First, they claim the game is rooted in history, yet pivot to emphasizing fictional elements while defending their creative choices. Then they blur the lines even further by trying to represent a fictional character.
And here I'm pausing a lot, but like, let's again, who is this for? Who is this for? Because if I'm an African-American dude and I'm playing Assassin's Creed and I'm in, this is obviously Japan, I'm going to be a little pissed off. Obviously, I'm not African-American, but it's the same thing if it was a Hispanic character. Like, if you shoehorn my culture or my identity into something that doesn't belong, just because you want to try to fit it in there, I'm going to feel like I'm a token. I'm going to feel like I'm just a number that you plugged in, and it's going to piss me off because I'm thinking to myself, I could have had a really cool, my grandparents are from Argentina, right? That's where my dad's side of the family is, Argentina. And they have like Argentina, South America. They have like the Aztecs and stuff like that, right? Well, that'd be badass if we had like some kind of Argentinian Assassin's Creed, the Aztec, like whatever, right? But if you're telling me that you just dumped like Russia, we have this random Hispanic Assassin's Creed in Russia, like I'm gonna be pissed. I don't want to be in Russia. I want to be where I belong for the historical context. So, if I'm African American, I would be pissed too that we could have had an African American assassin in African America. It's just, who's this game for? Because the dudes that play this are mostly just dudes. They're sweaty nerds. So why are the people they're trying to appease and do the tokenism is the people who are just like wanting diversity for diversity's sake. And they're the same people that aren't going to be playing this game. Let's be honest. The people that speak the loudest for wanting inclusion and diversity are the same people who don't play video games or don't care. They just want to say things just to make it happen, to make themselves feel better, to feel like, oh, we accomplished something. I was able to change the video game industry. I'm a hero that no one cares about.
Character Nawe as a part of some broader historical narrative. It's as if they're trying to have it both ways, asserting historical authenticity when it suits them while falling back on fiction when it doesn't. If the decision to include Yasuke was genuinely creative or thematic, then why not just own it? Say we wanted Yasuke because we thought it added something unique to the story. That would make it feel far more honest than trying to dress it up as some noble endeavor to try to highlight diversity. The over-justification doesn't reinforce the decision, it just makes it feel disingenuous, as though they're anticipating the backlash rather than simply standing for their creative vision. Kote would go on to further justify their actions, saying, "This echoes the selfless bravery of our Assassin's Creed protagonists. They fought for freedom, knowledge, and the right to chart their own paths, just as we do as creators. Fight to tell stories that matter in a world that grows increasingly divided."
No one cares, dude. No one cares about what you want to make. Let's like who you are a company. Your job is to appease the consumer. It's like let's say car dealers. Let's say like Chevy. They make a new model, but they make it for themselves. And it's just this ass looking thing. You think the consumer's going to buy it if you made it just for yourself? No, they're not going to touch that. Not with a 9-foot pole.
The authors of How Democracies Die so powerfully stated, democracies crumble when good people decide to stay silent. The same is true, I think, of our creative freedom when we allow fear to stifle our voices, when we self-censor in the face of threats, when we hand over our power piece by piece until freedom and creativity both wither away. We cannot let that happen. It's time for us creators to stand firm in our commitment to our values by telling stories that inspire, that challenge, and help people to connect. Our silence cannot become complicit.
You do realize, and I hope that you realize this, you make video games to entertain. I did not buy a video game to have a lecture, to have your propaganda, your agenda, to have your freedom to express yourself. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about your values. I don't give a fuck about your dreams and desires. I don't give a fuck. I am a gamer. I come home after working a long day of work. I'm sweaty. I am tired. I just want to kill something, or I want to explore something, or I want to have a fun experience. The last thing I want to do is turn on my PC or console and then be fed the same bullshit that I see on the news or online, on Twitter, or on whatever, Yahoo News or CNN or whatever. Like, I don't want real life bullshit. I want to escape it. So keep your stupid ass freedom and shove it up your ass. You make games not for yourself. You make games for the consumer. Shut the fuck up. I'm tired of people thinking that, oh, because I make the game, I can do whatever I want. Sure, you can. But as a consumer, I can do whatever I want. And that's not give you my money. Fuck you.
This man deserves an Emmy. I am dying here. Please help. Kote is suggesting that criticism or backlash is akin to self-censorship, implying that questioning their creative choices is the same as threatening their freedom to create. But criticism is not censorship. Players are pointing out inconsistencies, questioning decisions.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was censorship. You are making a game. You are trying to sell a product. That is your job. That should be your goal. You're not an activist. You're not out here doing activism. Whatever. If that's what you want to do, then quit your job and go do that. You are selling a product. The last thing, here's a good example. I go out and I buy plastic wares, right? I buy plastic food. Or not plastic food, but plastic containers and stuff like that, like disposables. On the package, there's a bunch of stuff like activism and stuff that says I'm a bad person for using this, or I'm being told that 3,000 animals die every day because they choke on this. Like, I, as a consumer, don't want to see that shit. It may be true to a certain extent, but I'm there to consume. I'm not going to buy a product that shames me, puts me down, or tries to lecture me. And this is coming from someone who literally went and got his master's degree. And I got a lot of liberal teaching in there, right? I went to a liberal school with liberal teachers. And I can tell you right now, I don't want to hear that shit when I'm playing a video game. I don't want lectures. I don't want a moral compass. If I want a moral compass, I will go out and interact with real people in the real space. I play video games because I want to have a moment to breathe.
And expressing dissatisfaction for a product that they're expected to pay for, and that's not an existential threat to your creative freedom. It's feedback. Treating critique as a form of oppression is not only disingenuous, but it's actively dismissing the audience.
Like, listen, he's absolutely correct. Criticism is fair. Now, if you have someone throwing death threats or just being racist or sexist or just, that's one thing. But you have people bringing, you can't, what developers nowadays love to do is you have a group that's loud and unspoken, like, you're so woke. And then you have people that have like real, like they're trying to be neutral. They're trying to provide real criticism. Like, your gameplay is boring. It's buggy. It doesn't look very interesting. They like to marry them together and say, well, these gamers are toxic. They're racist and sexist. They like to marry them together to avoid any accountability, to avoid any actual real criticism. They like to water it down and say, well, these people are saying death threats, and so we no longer can listen to these people who are not doing death threats because they're all the same people. And that's not true. Like, Bungie was the same way for a while there. They wouldn't respond to the community because they had death threats. Okay, not everyone that's giving criticism is throwing death threats.
His role in this process. The invocation of how democracies die is especially egregious. It conflates real-world political and social crisis with the act of creating entertainment products.
And I think that's when you immediately know that Ubisoft is dying, is because they are smelling their political fart so much. They can't separate what's happening in the real world versus making a video game for entertainment purposes. Like, politics should not be involved in video games. Sure, like, you can say, like, for instance, Final Fantasy VII has a lot of, like, things, backstories going on, like eco-terrorism and all that stuff, like with Shinra and destroying the planet. Like, there's a lot of themes in games, and I think that's tasteful. But when you have someone that's just bluntly throwing stuff in your face, they're not hiding it. It's not like it, the main story is the agenda and the topic of what they're trying to shove down your throat. That's what causes people, and I'm going to be honest, this is what causes extremism. Like, you get dudes like me who are neutral, who just like, I see both sides, but then you keep butchering the video games to the point where it enrages people like me. And then that's how you get people who are more extreme, who are less tolerant, and you make enemies. And it doesn't make sense to me. Like, people like these are, they try to villainize you. And when you villainize people with legit criticism, you make them extreme. You make them what you try to call them as. The thing that you are saying you're being oppressed, well, you are oppressing them. And then you're making them to where they become more oppressive. Like, they don't care. It's this vicious cycle that's created by the stupid developers.
It's appealing to authority, using the weight of academic work to justify your inclusion of specific characters or narratives in a damn video game. But the game is not democracy, nor is it a battleground for your lofty ideals. It is a product designed for entertainment and for sale. And that's where the root of player concerns are right now. This is a product designed to be purchased for entertainment, and this is what you want to use it for. And then when we find out that this game is reportedly being worked on by a staff comprised of people who nearly half of them...
Holy crap. Half of Assassin's Creed Shadows devs have never built a game before. Well, that would explain the gameplay looking like ass. Again, forget the diversity and their stupid shoehorn bullshit. The game looks like ass. I will not be playing this unless it's on Game Pass or if I'm set in the high seas. I'm not playing this game.
Have never even made a game before, with some of them believing that it is the worst game ever, and your only response to players' concerns is your nobility and the belief that you're some freedom fighter? It only helps to prove that this game, regardless of its delay, will have Yasuke being the least of players' concerns. They're burying the...
My thoughts exactly. Yasuke and him being a black samurai is the least thing that we should be concerned of. It is literally the game itself that is going to be a dumpster fire. let alone the storyline.
Lead. When I see a developer that is this wrapped up in their own social politics, I see it as a mining canary, that they are ignoring what they need to be paying attention to, which is making sure that they're making a game that players are actually going to enjoy. They're not paying attention to gameplay. They think they're writing a stage play. And I think that's what has a lot of players, a lot of customers that are genuinely upset and sick of a lot of these studios and many of their executives. This kind of speech that Cote is using only serves to alienate the players even further, because he's taking the conversation to a moral high ground that is so high the elevation is likely to make you sick.
He's villainizing people. He's like, oh, you bring any criticism, you are threatening my freedom. You tell me I shouldn't do this, or I have to do it this way. No, that's against my creative freedom. Bitch, you are making a game for to sell. You need to sell it. It's not meant for you. It's not like you're Starbucks. You make your favorite mochiata. No one gives a shit. I want my latte, whatever the hell that you get at Starbucks. Like, I don't care what you want me to have. I want what I want to have. Make me my drink and shut up.
Sick. Players are not rejecting creativity, diversity, or meaningful storytelling. They are pushing back against pretension and their critiques of a product being compared to assaults on fundamental freedoms. I think that's the most frustrating part about all of this, is that it's so easy to see that community concerns, player concerns, customer concerns are being purposefully ignored. This is patented intellectual dishonesty. And because of that, the players and the customers feel disrespected. And this is just a piece of advice.
And again, Ubisoft's not the only one that does that. Bungie has the same issues, and they're in the same track. They're on a downhill trend right now. Sony's telling them to get their head out of their ass. Like, if Marathon doesn't do well, like, Bungie is going to be in the same place as Ubisoft, because they try to gaslight their communities. Both of them try to, make the crap that they want to make. They act like they listen to the players, but they don't. They try to keep a moral high ground, and it's just this constant, we want to make what we want to make, and you're going to buy it. But the reality is, gamers are not stupid, and you can't treat us like garbage. Now, there are doormats who are being used like doormats, but majority of gamers nowadays don't want to be treated that way. And luckily, more and more people are starting to shake off the doormat mentality, and they're like, no, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of every game treating me like a doormat. Maybe I'll do for my favorite game, but I'm not letting everyone do that. So people are waking up and being less sheeple and being more intelligent.
Advice that I'm going to give, but when players feel that way, they're not going to buy your games.
Oh,
I don't think that I've ever seen a company so thoroughly and completely gaslight themselves as much as Ubisoft has. And they're good
Bungie
at it. And that's just the state of the company today. Now, following the abysmal launch of Star Wars Outlaws, the game reportedly only captured 1 million copies sold. In an act of self-inflicted financial devastation, the company has chose to stay true to its plans to continue to support the game with more updates, reworks, and changes. In an interview with Games Radar, Julian Garrity, the creative director, said, "I'm a little disappointed with the Metacritic. Recognition from the critics is very important to us, but I do think that players are really connecting with what we did. We had a very ambitious target. We literally..."
How are you so focused on Metacritic? When you look at the score, the player score is even worse than Metacritic's. Your player base, the player count. Like, I'm almost tempted to just like Star Wars Outlaws. Steam charts. Is it on Steam yet? Yeah, I think it's on Steam. Yeah. Yeah, buddy. Yep. And listen, I know the consoles have it, but like, this is bad. Even for a single player, your all-time peak on Steam alone is that's pretty bad. And then let's see, what game do we want to look at? Not Destiny. I mean, Destiny. What was a single player game that we could think of? Like, let's just Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones? Is that, can I do that? We're doing it live. Indiana Jones. I know I'm spelling it wrong. Indiana Jones. Team charts. And the Fate of Atlantis, Emperor's Tomb. Ah, there it is. The Steam DB. But, yeah, I mean, just came out. All-time high, already better than Star Wars Outlaws. Imagine that. Isn't that crazy? One is Star Wars, which is a name brand, and so is Indiana Jones. But yeah, here we are. One's doing much better than the other.
He reached for the stars, and I think that we were successful from so many different angles. There's a magical, unique experience within Outlaws, whether it's Star Wars or not. Now,
Yeah, the magical thing is how many people don't want to play it.
I want to pause there for a moment before I continue, because worrying about the critics is exactly what got Ubisoft into the position it's in today. As I go throughout this interview, they mostly end up talking about how they're still working hard on the game's story expansions as well as improving the base game. However, I can't help but feel as though this is just an exercise in futility more than anything else, and they would be better off refunding players who bought the Season Pass content and just cutting ties with the game. I wish that companies would stop being so ambitious about the future of their game and focus on...
I think, like, Suicide Squad comes to mind, where they're so stubborn and refuse to just take the L, right? And I think it's because they're trying to milk as much, like the content's already made, so they're trying to milk whatever they can from whatever players are there. But like, at some point, you got to own it and say, you know what? We're not getting anywhere. We're done here. I don't know.
On the present, what is the point of committing yourselves to future plans if you have no idea whether or not players are going to even play your game in the first place? And 3, the series that studio is loved for, which has already gone into pre-production. From my perspective, given the sales of Star Wars Outlaws and its tepid reception when it released on Steam, wouldn't it be a better idea to go all hands on deck with an IP that you know players want and you know that studio has the most experience with?
I just said this, so I'm skipping ahead.
Just turn it around in the next season. Which, now that I think about it,
on Skull and Bones,
they just convinced themselves that Skull and Bones is a worthwhile investment, and they are telling players in the media that they will turn it around in the next season.
Hey guys, your quadruple or your quad A game. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm surprised it's around for season 4, to be honest.
Which, now that I think about it, that sounds oddly familiar. Ubisoft coming out to reassure players and the industry that, contrary to popular belief, one of their games is actually healthy and has a bright future. Oh, wait, that's right, X-Defiant. Just a few months ago, Mark Rubin, the head of X-Defiant, wrote a blog post and a summary of their Year 1 roadmap.
Ooh, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Game, and in it, he took the time to take on Insider Gaming's claims that the game was living on borrowed time. Rubin had said, "I just want to quickly address the status of the game, i.e., is the game dying? No, the game is absolutely not dying."
Famous last words. I'm moving forward.
Rubin goes on to talk about how the game was a passion project, how difficult it is to get a live service game off the ground, and more.
I think all those statements are true. It is hard, and it's a very competitive field. And you're competing not just in general in the same genre, but you're competing for other live services. Like, you have Division. Like, I'm just going to spitball in games, right? The First Ascent, Warframe, the Division, Destiny. I mean, technically, yeah, you could say Call of Duty, like anything like that where it's ongoing. Fortnite, like all these games. You have these games that take up a lot of people's time, especially games like MMOs or MMO lights like Destiny, Diablo, Path of Exile. These games require you to really grind and spend a lot of time. You can't sit there and hop off that often to go play other games because you're trying to focus on getting this one game. And so, yes, he's right. I just think if you're going to take the time to go into that field of a live service game, you need to put effort into it, or you're just wasting your time. And you're wasting the player's time.
I find really interesting is this section where Mark says, if there's something I hope we can take away from this experience, it's the importance of open, honest communication between developers and players. The player-first mentality, along with respectful, non-toxic conversations between developers and players, has been one of the standout differences that made X-Defiant so special. From my first post about XDefiant, this was the vision I wanted to champion. I hope it leaves a positive mark on how the games industry treats its players and communities. Yet, none of that ever actually happened. There was no honest communication.
To be crystal clear, there are no plans to shut down after season 4. Yeah, I mean, that's another example. Why do people allow game companies to gaslight them like this? This is blatant.
Or a player-first mentality when it came to XDefiant or any other Ubisoft game for that matter.
Wow, why can't we have this kind of transparency with other devs? These are the people that just, they fall for everything every time. These are people who just aren't critical thinkers. People who don't really like. I think it is wise to have some be cynical. It is wise. In the age that we live in, you should be cynical. You should be questioning everything. Do not take everything at face value, especially game developers. Just don't.
While the game had issues, serious core issues with netcode and hit registration, two things that are quite literally the backbone of a first-person shooter experience,
Yep.
That didn't stop Ubisoft from adding more microtransactions or season passes. Instead, the money printer kept printing while the issues kept pushing players out of.
And that's the thing. They thought that they could squeeze as much as they could. Eventually, people are going to have more respect for themselves. And it's happening more and more where less people are willing to buy into a new game and be treated like a doormat. And thank God.
Of the game. While Ubisoft plans to refund the players that had purchased the Ultimate Edition, technical and quality issues, or even just the vision of a well-made game that players will actually enjoy, is eclipsed by how they can commoditize, monetize, and use their games as a soapbox. While I definitely think that there's a problem with egos within the industry, I
agree. I think people use video games as a infection, right? They take something, they implant their infection into it, and they try to use it as a way to spread their own thoughts and feelings and their beliefs. And that's all it is. It's a vehicle, nothing more, nothing less. And that's why you see these games usually have less quality, because the quality it's not intended. It's not, they don't care. It's not the quality they care about. It's the message. It's what they want you to get from them, what they want to tell you, what they want you to engage in. They don't care about the actual game. And here's the thing. If you look at Baldur's Gate, you can be anything you want to be. You could have sex with men, women, squid, whatever. You could be black, white, Asian, whatever you want to be, demon. You could be whatever you want. There's no agenda. You just play the game. Enjoy the game. The agenda is have a fun time playing the game. But then you get games of lower quality, and it's just because they're trying to use it as a vehicle to infect you with their message. That's it.
I think that this mentality with a lot of these companies is born from the fact that they're publicly traded. They have fiduciary responsibilities. They need to make money for their investors. But I also think that it's a symptom of a much larger issue. Too much investment and too much inorganic growth. Many of the biggest publishers and studios in the industry are now incentivized by the sheer size of their organization and the number of their employees to make their games more expensive, to fill them with microtransactions.
And that's the thing. You have shittier games that are more expensive, that have more microtransactions, that have more incentive to do the premium deluxe edition, and you get the soundtrack and an extra mission and 3 items. Wow, we're really popping off here.
Actions for problems that they created. Ubisoft as a company is a case study for this industry and where it is headed. They aren't alone in this issue. They're not alone in
Bungie.
This race. And while games media and CEOs will happily blame toxic gamers for the issues of these companies or say that the reason why games are failing is because of steep competition, they deny reality the same as Ubisoft. Your games are boring, they're buggy, repetitive, and too expensive. We don't need you, but you need us.
And I think that's the thing that game developers don't understand. It's not your employee that gives you money. We, the consumer, put food on your plate. And when developers, you start threatening developers and their jobs, which you would think that people would start waking up. Ding, 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 ding. How many people got laid off? That's why when people were upset that the Game Awards didn't address the layoffs, I don't care. I'm sorry. You don't make things for the consumer. You don't do your job, which is to entertain and to bring a product that is what your main consumer wants. That's on you. You just, that's it. You lose your job. I'm sorry. I'm not going to feel sorry for people who don't do their job.
And that becomes more apparent by the day as we see more games fail and more studios close. Remember who you're working for, or you might not be working much longer. You know, something that I've noticed, and I'm sure a few of you guys have seen this as well, is that art styles, themes, colors, characters, stories, even music at times has started to kind of blend together with some of these games. However, the most popular games, the games that have gotten some of the best sales and some of the best player feedback and retention and all that good stuff, player appreciation, customer appreciation, are games that are incredibly distinct. If I look at like Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate or Path of Exile 2 or any of these games, they end up standing out because they just don't look like or play like or sound like anything else that's out there.
It's not a cop. I'm gonna probably end the video there for him, but check the links down below if you want to see the rest of it and see the parts I skipped. But just for the sake of time, the problem is that these developers, a lot of developers, do this copy pasta, chase a trend, insert their own objective, their own thoughts, and then they try to force you to play it. And when you criticize them, you're the problem, not them. You're racist, sexist. You're insert phobic. You are just an incel. You are a gooner. You're a grifter. There are so many things that they try to paint you as a broad brush as the problem, instead of accepting the fact that they didn't make a game for the intended targets, the intended target audience that it should have been for. They are responsible for their own failures, but they want you to be the problem. And it's time that we stop allowing them to treat us like we're the problem. Again, I do think there is issues where people overextend and everything is becoming woke when it's not. Where everything's becoming, oh, they're trying to force an agenda when it's not. But you do have perfect examples like Ubisoft that does do it. And they're making a poor, less quality game. And they're not caring about their gamers. And they're suffering for it, which is good. Don't give them your money. That's how you want your voice to be heard. Stop chirping and stop swiping. Right? We are so chirpy. And these same people are the ones that are swipey. Oh, what's that? New costume? Swipe. What's that new DLC? Swipe. Just stop. Stop swiping. Stop giving your money. Stop buying deluxe editions. Stop. Don't do it. It's not worth it. So again, I think Ubisoft, we will see it dissolve. Like, it's crazy. It sucks because Rainbow Six Siege, like I said, is probably one of the few Ubisoft games that is pretty well good, like balanced. It has its moments. Like there was the whole drama of them making a handicap operator on, like it was weird, but it's like whatever, right? If that's the worst, okay, cool. Okay. And then Assassin's Creed, which is to me has always been going downhill ever since they stopped actually focusing on actual assassins. That's just me. I fully accept I'm in the minority now. Assassin's Creed's grown outside of me, who was the intended audience, and it's now just whatever the hell it is now and whatever the audience is. But I'm not included in that. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. Hit the like button, comment down below, and let me know what you think. Until next time,